Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2021 My Team Career Mode, episode number 15 today for the Japanese Grand Prix in Season 1. If you guys did miss the previous episode, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one, as, well, it was a bit of a chaotic Singapore Grand Prix for many different reasons. We had the championship leader spun out and colliding with his teammate. We had Fernando Alonso, the likes of Alonso, Leclerc in the top 5, and Alonso at one point in P3. But of course, the major takeaway from that episode was we were dealt another really harsh blow in this very, very cruel sport. We had a DNF, a gearbox failure, so we've got a worn gearbox now, so that's also going to affect this Grand Prix, remember, because that worn gearbox, we're going to have to change that, because that was the reason it broke, so we're going to have to take a 5-place penalty for this Japanese Grand Prix before we've even begun, before we've even gotten into it, so that's a little tad annoying. What is great though is this charity event, marketing HQ event, which means that we can get 2,000 on the acclaim level for making a large donation at a charity event, and that for me is a no-brainer. 2,000 acclaim, that is more than what I lost in acclaim to losing to Fernando Alonso, of course. I was in an in-game rivalry with him for 1.4k. We lost that because I DNF'd, so all counts, I lost that last episode. So to get 2k acclaim just for making a donation, that's pretty good. And on top of that, we do get 300 R&D for the failure. The team, look into it and they, assess what was wrong and can try and fix that. And so that kind of equates to, from what they were doing in real life, fixing the problem and seeing what the issue was, that equates to us getting 300 points in-game, which is not too bad, but still a bit of a sour taste in the mouth for Singapore. I think it could have been a really good one, but it is what it is. It's already happened. We need to move past it, and we are going to have to take a gearbox penalty because our gearbox is now 80% worn, so there's no way we can get away with that probably in the whole Grand Prix weekend. Maybe get away with it in qualifying, but definitely not for the whole race, so we're going to have to take a 5-place penalty, so already on the back foot a little bit, but surely we can't have another issue this race weekend. I probably just jinxed it, but let's see. But before we get into the rest of the video and talk about R&D purchasing before the race weekend, we've got a sponsor for this episode. Yes, today's video is sponsored by Surfshark, a great VPN service, easy to install and really easy to use. Surfshark VPN is really fast and easy to use. It's jam-packed full of awesome features and really easy to install and run on multiple devices. Whether you're traveling and you don't want to get locked out of your bank account, or just be safe on public Wi-Fi, or you want to unlock streaming content, depending on where you are in the world, on various other streaming platforms, or you just really care about securing your data whilst you're browsing on the internet, then Surfshark VPN is a great service for you. Now, one of the biggest uses for Surfshark is to unlock content on websites like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, anything that has a geo-lock essentially. They can be rather annoying when certain things are locked off to you just because of where you live, and locking things is so simple, and the way it works is just simply putting you in a different place according to the VPN. So let's say, for example, I'm a really massive Marvel fan. You guys know that if you follow me on Twitter and Instagram. So let's say Spider-Man movies. They were taken off the UK Netflix site. They used to be on there, a couple of them, but now none of them are on there anymore. So if you have Netflix but you don't have a subscription to any other services where they might be there for the UK, you can still hold on to your Netflix service, use Surfshark VPN, unlock Spider-Man films instantly and easily, and it really is as simple as just a few little clicks and a refresh and you're done. All of that good stuff is still putting you on the fence. Then there's a 30-day money-back guarantee policy, so you can just try it out if you want, and if you like it, which I'm sure you will, you can just continue to use it. And thanks to the guys and girls over at Surfshark VPN, I've got a really sick deal. You can go over to their website and use the code aarava at checkout for 83% off and 3 extra months for free. That is an insane deal. Again, use the promo code aarava at the website, link in the description down below, and get 83% off and 3 months free. That is wild. Again, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you just want to try it out, you can, and then you can part ways if you don't really fancy it. Now, speaking about investments in R&D ahead of the race weekend, of course, we've been speculating about maybe purchasing the fabrication on the engine side, the powertrain facility. We are going to do that now. We have the money, 2.2 million. Of course, we're getting towards the point where maybe I might think about saving up to get to Spec 2 on either the aero or the chassis, but we're not quite there yet. We need like a good, I think, 4 4 or 5 million at least to get a Spec 2, be it kind of build time or fabrication on the aero chassis. We've got a little bit of money to spend here. I've got nothing to spend it on necessarily, and I kind of just remembered that you've got these driver perks. Now, we've had a lot of engine wear, and at the same time, I want to try and speed up the R&D a bit, because we're just lagging a little bit too much compared to AlphaTauri, I feel, and Alpine for my liking for where we are in the career mode at the moment. So I've got to head and purchase the power mapping for the engine wear reduced by 10%, and then also development feedback for myself as well. So we're going to have a 10% booster on the R&D permanently, and a 10% engine wear decrease permanently for the rest of our career. So that's going to be pretty damn decent. Definitely something that's useful and you guys should be looking at as well if you're playing your own career modes and finding it a little bit tough. Obviously, up till now, I've not had any kind of spare cash, but I thought there was a little bit left over there, so we may as well, because from now on, I think we'll be saving till we get the Spec 2 for the HQ facility. In terms of R&D, we're going to go ahead and purchase a major weight redistribution. There's a lot of these upgrades on the redistribution side of things to do on the chassis front. I've always been quite skeptical of what it actually does, because obviously the description is it, shifts the weight and a bit more evenly, so you get a more balanced car, and so the weight shifting, from left to right, maybe in a corner, is better. I've always been skeptical ever since R&D came in, how much of a difference that makes, and if it's more of a placebo effect or anything like that, but they're there for a reason. We're going to have to do them eventually, so we may as well purchase that. So that's a pretty big upgrade that will come in a little bit later down the line, and that is going to be us sorted going into the Japanese Grand Prix. The forecast, well, there is some forecast for rain on Sunday, so we're taking a 5-place penalty from qualifying. So that's kind of great. We're going to be on the back foot, and we're going to then have a wet race to try and deal with from 5 places back. So definitely, it's going to be a bit tough, I think. It's not going to be an easy one. And Japan is always a bit of a tricky one. The AI are very consistent around here. Although, to be fair, in the last game, I had some good... It was happy hunting ground, I would say, around Suzuka, so you never know. But, yeah, it is what it is. Going through the practice programs right now, pretty much you'll notice everything that we're getting in terms of boosters are all related to the engine or the durability. So, to be fair, even though we're neglecting maybe getting a few more durability upgrades on the car or the engine ones, or we're kind of getting into the engine ones now, it is making them rather cheap. So, by the time we get to them, the amount of booster discounts I'm going to have on them is going to be pretty significant, to the point where there may be some ridiculous ones where we only have to spend 100 R&D points to get like a minor, or even like a major, like only 200, which is crazy, because obviously usually a major is like, a good, like, a couple of hundred, 500, 600 at least, at the minimum. So that's going to be pretty good at least. But here we are then, Suzuka, Japan. And remember, we've got a completely clean engine in the back of this car. And to be fair, that's not the thing that broke. The gearbox was broke. I said at the time in the last episode, I thought that we had the similar thing to Baku, where in Baku, of course, we had a whole new engine and the turbocharger or something, or the MGK failed. Whereas this time we had a whole new engine, but we didn't look at what the gearbox was like. I think the gearbox must have been about at least 50 or 60%, and it just unluckily popped in the middle of the Grand Prix. So, yeah, the engine is all fine to us and should be working well. And it is working well, I think, as we go through now to cross the line for our second lap then across the line in Q1. And we will just about get through into the second part of qualifying. It initially looked like a better lap, but then every other person on the sun set better ones. Ilot out in P19. You can see, though, what I mean by, in terms of pure pace, at the moment in Q1 at least, lacking a little bit versus, both AlphaTauris and Alpines, because they've been able to pull away. I suspect Alpine and AlphaTauri both have some HQ facilities that are Spec 2 compared to us. So we are kind of hitting a bottleneck at the end of this season. That's going to be rectified, of course, for next season, but I can't lie, it has been a little bit annoying and frustrating not to be a little bit higher up in the R&D chart and have the pure pace and not have to pull out a worldly performance every single time to get points and stuff like that. But that's how the cookie crumbles at the start of the career mode. But right now we're just trying to do the max job we can, and the max we can do at the moment is P14 then, with the one and only lap we have in Q2 on a fresh set of soft compound tyres. In the end, Sonoda out-qualifies us, goes quicker, Ocon the same, and we're P15 ahead of Raikkonen. Ocon also has a grid penalty, though, you may see there. So both of us are going 5 places, and as we saw at Singapore, and the race before as well. We're getting to that point in the season where the AI are also facing some engine issues, so there may be a couple of people ahead of us that do have penalties as well, so it may not be all doom and gloom, but we're going to be, at least I would say, towards like the second last row or third last row, with the 5 place being 15 to P20. Obviously, we can jump up a little bit with others having a penalty, so let's see. Let's go to the grid for a wet start at Suzuka.
We come to you live today from the Mie Prefecture in the south of Japan's Honshu Island for a race that has seen many title deciders over the years. Some simple, some controversial, but all contributing to a legacy that makes the Japanese Grand Prix an indispensable stop in any Formula One season. We're southwest of the city of Nagoya today at a wet and windy Suzuka circuit. 3.6 miles and 18 corners make up a lap here, with Sector 1 likely to prove especially difficult in these conditions. We should see overtaking into turns 1 and 16 today, and maybe a few Kobayashi-style dives into the hairpin as well. Also here, of course, is Anthony Davidson. Now, I want to talk to you about Valtteri Bottas. That was a great win in the last race. Can they keep that momentum going this weekend?
It's always nice to come into a Grand Prix weekend on a high, but your expectations are based much more on your practice and qualifying runs. So it's the momentum from those sessions that they'll be hoping to carry into the race today.
Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Good job yesterday from Valtteri Bottas. The Finn starts from pole position, and it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Norris, Leclerc, Sergio Perez, and Stroll, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, the owner driver, and Max Verstappen. They've taken a grid penalty. Raikkonen, Gasly, Antonio Giovinazzi and Mick Schumacher, Eilert, Vettel, George Russell and Nicholas Latifi, Fernando Alonso, Mazepin. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Ocon and Carlos Sainz will start from the back of the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
Okay, so you know how I spoke about grid penalties for other people? I don't know what the maths is and how the FI have worked this out, but somehow I've ended up in P9 on the grid. P9. So I've moved up 6 positions, but there's definitely not that many people behind me, I feel. Or maybe, I don't know. I don't know what the maths is here, but I'm in P9, which is absolutely amazing. We're already in the top 10. So now this has turned into actually a really good chance to actually get some points around here, maybe. We've got, well, you can see the forecast apparently says cloudy, so not even any rain is forecast here on the indicator, but we're all on intermediates. The track is wet, the rain is falling, so the session forecast is completely wrong, so great stuff there. The guys back in the factory sending me this data for this screen. So I don't know. It could be a one stop from Inter to Inter, but if it is saying it's going to be just cloudy, potentially we might get to dries by the end of this one, and I would prefer that, to be honest, because I think we have a better chance of holding on to some points paying positions if it does get to dry. But from P9, we've got to take this essentially gift from the F1 gods and everyone else having engine penalties and do the most we can, and literally do the most and try and get as many points as we can over our rivals of AlphaTauri. Tsunoda ahead of me, I think Gasly behind me, so let's just see what we can do as we rev up then to 5 red lights here in Suzuka for the Japanese Grand Prix, coming off the back of a DNF at Singapore. Let's bounce back in style. 5 red lights are out and we're underway, and it is very, very sluggish off the line, covering off Verstappen in the Red Bull. He's on the inside. We give him a good old pinch into turn 1. Little bit of contact made, I felt, on my steering wheel, but he's going to stay put in P10. Raikkonen behind, but Tsunoda, he's the lead AlphaTauri in this race because Pierre Gasly's in P12. We need to try and get past him. He's the man we're aiming for, and then after that, it's just basically seeing how high up we could get, or if we can keep the P8 position, because I think all the other cars ahead of Tsunoda are going to be much quicker. But it's a cracking start for Lando Norris off the second row. He's up into second place there, splitting the 2 Mercedes cars. Verstappen all over the back of us in the Red Bull. But remember, the wet, Inters, full wet, it's always an equaliser, and you can always do a little bit more in a slower car in these conditions, especially versus the Red Bull car. I felt like, we've seen before, we held up Sergio Perez, I think it was, wasn't it, at the Belgium Grand Prix to take home the podium. Yellow flags behind in the hairpin. We've held up a Red Bull before. That Red Bull, it may be a quick car, but in traffic, in the wet as well, sometimes if you have the car set up correctly, you can just pull away on every straight and make sure you stay ahead. And that's what we're doing. I mean, look at that. Verstappen's nowhere near us now, and we're gaining on Tsunoda. Verstappen's miles back, so that Red Bull may be great in the corners and whatnot, but off the acceleration zones, we've got the better power. We've got the better straight line speed with the drag reduction, the weight, the chassis weight reduction. But look at the stonking effort then from Lando Norris. Great start off the second row, jumped Lewis Hamilton, and so, well, he is the championship leader, Hamilton, in third place, but he may just be losing that today if he can't get back past Lando Norris and then go chasing after the race leader, Valtteri Bottas. But look at everyone kind of snaking about, so very, very tricky conditions this afternoon. On to lap number 3, we're sticking with Yuki Tsunoda, our main rival in this race, the lead AlphaTauri. We're going to go for the move. We've got the overspeed with ERS down into turn 1. It's going to be very close. Little bit of contact, and Tsunoda's off wide, and he's got a penalty. Tsunoda has been given a 3-second penalty for that, and we've got through, but I don't really know what went on there. We went for the move. Verstappen's now got Tsunoda, but I don't really actually know what that penalty was for. I think that was just hard and fast and fair racing from both of us there. I think there was the tiniest bit of contact between myself and him on my left front and his rear right, or his side pod, but it was like a tiny fraction. But of course, being in the intermediates, if you're going to try and hang around the outside that aggressively, I think that's what's lost him the grip there. I don't know what the penalty's for, whether it's track extension or making contact with me or whatever the case. He's been given that penalty. I'm not going to complain. Obviously, he's our competitor, so that helps me out massively. If we can push him out the points, both AlphaTauris out the points today and me in the points, will be a massive thing. But let's look at a replay on board with him now. Off board, it's hard to tell. On board with him, I mean, there's a little bit, you can tell there's a tiny bit of contact between myself and him, but then he just kind of doesn't get it slowed down, basically. So maybe that's why they're getting the penalty. He didn't slow it down. He was just using the outside of the track to take the corner, and they felt like he wouldn't have made the corner completely if it wasn't for the runoff area there. I don't know, but Verstappen's got him now, and so we're here on lap number 4 with Max Verstappen, the Red Bull, bearing down on us, and this is a very weird scenario to kind of even commentate on, of Verstappen hunting us down, but we're defending from him. But I think we've got what it takes to hold him off, you know, in the wet. You know, we've got enough acceleration. We're using the ERS very cleverly on the straights we need to pull away. Of course, he can close up to us in the S section and whatnot, but it doesn't matter if he can't get us in a straight line. But it's a question of, can we kind of hold this out until, well, I don't know what we're waiting for, either a pit stop onto inters like the strategy suggests, or maybe dry tyres. But as we get onto lap number 7, then a couple laps later, you can see on the top left, the gap has grown from what was 3 to 4 seconds to nearly 12 seconds to Ricciardo. So our pace is very slow for sure, but Verstappen's still not getting past us. So well and truly, we're just doing the most we can to stay ahead of him. But then on lap 12, a couple laps later, we gain back the time. We're now under 7 seconds to Ricciardo. So I don't know what's happening up front. I think you can see on the minimap, look at that. Everyone's bunched up behind Valtteri Bottas. So I think Bottas is going a lot slower at this stage of the Grand Prix and backing the top 7 back into us. So in a flash, we've gone from 3-second gap to Ricciardo to 12 seconds, back to 4 seconds now on lap 14. Very confusing situation. I wasn't really sure if I was driving quick or slow, or the other guys ahead of us were slow or quick or whatever, but whatever the case is, the time gap is yo-yoed about. And at this stage, in my mind, I was thinking, okay, we're chasing after these guys. 2 more laps go by, lap 16 then, and we're still in P8, but look at those inters. Very worn. They're almost slick inters, like was the case at Belgium in that episode, and also in real life, remember, last year at the Turkish Grand Prix. And now my team are telling me to come in for a dry tyre pit stop. It looks so wet out there, and they're telling me to come on for dry tyres. We've only got 10 laps, to be fair, of this Grand Prix. So if everyone's going on to dries, which I think they are, because look at the mini-map, I think a couple of people are coming in, and I assume everyone's coming in for these dry tyres. We've only got 10 laps. I think 10 laps, we could take softs on, so why bother with the mediums? You may as well take the soft compound, have that quicker compound, and the soft compound will probably also bite into the track a little bit faster on the damp surface. So we're going to go on to the red wool soft compound tyre. car. Everyone else looks to be going onto the medium, so we're taking the gamble with the tyre wear, of course, at the end of the race, but 10 laps around Suzuka. I think the softs should go just about 10 laps around here. So we're out then on a very, very wet circuit indeed on soft tyres. But let's look at a replay then, track back just a lap ago and look at the leaders, because there has been a lead change. Valtteri Bottas came in on lap 16. Lando Norris continued on for one more lap onto lap 17. The same with Lewis Hamilton. So they went on for an overcut strategy. Lando comes in then on lap 17 onto 18 onto the medium tyres. Hamilton the same. But let's look at the ladder on the left-hand side and on also the track on the right-hand side of where Valtteri Bottas is going to be, because this is going to be mighty, mighty close. This is now live racing action here, and Lando coming through on the inside. He's got ahead of the Finn. McLaren with a masterstroke strategy to keep Lando out for one more lap, and it's seen him into the lead of the Grand Prix. And remember, McLaren, they've won 2 races already. They've got the pedigree this season in this alternate Formula 1 universe we're already creating in this series of ours. We've got McLaren as the second best team on the grid, Ricciardo with a win at Austria, and Lando with a win at the Belgium Grand Prix, and he may just go on to win this one as he leads at Japan. And you can see it's a very, very odd situation for this circuit though. Look how wet it is, but we've got all the grip in the world. Like the car at this stage, for me in the cockpit, it felt so quick. It felt like we'd sped up the footage or sped up the driving by like ×5 compared to the Inters, but it's just so odd. I feel like they've kind of overdone it a little bit with the graphics of the rain on this year's game. Like, it's good graphics, don't get me wrong, the textures are great, but in this crossover period, it looks way too wet for how it should be in terms of the actual physics of the tyres and the grip you have. It's just very confusing and hard to tell sometimes, but we are the quickest man on the track because we are the only man on soft tyres, because, and I've chosen that because we've only got 8 laps left. Like, well and truly, I think these tyres should go the distance, and we're now chasing after Lance Stroll. We're still setting some purple sectors. We're getting away from a Red Bull of Max Verstappen and Vettel and the Aston Martin, and we're catching up to the other British Racing Green car of Lance Stroll to try and get P7. Tsunoda and Gasly both at the point, so this would be massive for us in the fight versus AlphaTauri in the Constructors. And so here we go. We're going to go for it round the outside of Stroll. Stroll comes back, and it's oh, bit of contact, mate. It's a titanic battle as we're still side by side into the S section, flat out there, hitting the curb. Oh, so close on the right-hand side, but we've done it. We've overtaken the Canadian just about as the rear end steps out, snap of oversteer on the still wet curbs, and we're up into P7 here. We've overtaken Aston Martin on pure pace. The soft compound tyre working, but we have to defend the position. We squeeze Stroll so harshly towards the wall. He's still there though. Look at the commitment from the Canadian. He's really wanting to race us hard there, but we just about are going to keep the position still for another lap. But for how long can we keep this going? Well and truly, because Stroll is really on it. Verstappen's right there as well. But let's look at a replay, because I've got to say, absolute balls of steel from Stroll's AI. Look how much I squeezed him. To be honest, I'll put my hands up. That was a bit of a Schumacher hungry, a bit dangerous of a squeeze to us. That was a little bit over the mark, but Stroll just kept his foot in. Fair play. What a warrior he was there. And now we go towards the last lap of the Grand Prix, and Stroll's back passes through 130R side by side in the middle of the apex, and it's still damp out there. Remember, we somehow hold it through a little bit deep into the corner. We're going to squeeze Stroll out off the racing line, and we're going to maintain P7. It's now Verstappen who's going to come at us. It's the final lap of the Grand Prix. Can we maintain the P7? A great P7 versus AlphaTauri. Verstappen on the inside. We give him a squeeze into turn 1, and we're still ahead. This Red Bull just doesn't have the straight line speed this race weekend to get us in a straight line there. We're just doing enough. We're deploying ERS at the right moments of time, and here we are on the last stretch towards 130R. But look at this. The Red Bull just can't do it. He may have the downforce, he may have the overwhelming pace, but in a straight line, if you can't overtake me, you can't overtake me. And we're just deploying ERS at the right moment. Lando Norris, though, wins the Japanese Grand Prix. He's a 2-time race winner in this alternate 2021 season of Oz. And across the line for us, the P7, I think that's what, 6.66 massive points over AlphaTauri, both of them scoring 0 in this race. the driver of the day is Carlos Sainz apparently, but Lando Norris wins that one. Wow, what a race.
Another action-packed Japanese Grand Prix comes to an end. And what a magnificent drive to take the win here today. Anthony Davidson, a resounding victory today. What set them apart from the rest?
Well, they certainly stood out as a driver with tons of confidence on the track. I think their ability to keep their cool, even during some of the more hectic parts of the race, meant they were able to capitalise on the mistakes of other drivers, giving them the opportunity to make their way to the top spot with ease.
Our winning drivers are on their way to the podium right now. It's been a fantastic race for McLaren, that's for sure. And no doubt they'll be celebrating tonight.
I've said it before, I'll say it again though, this has been so awesome to see that already in Season 1, we are kind of diverging from real life and we're forging our own kind of storyline and universe, alternate universe in this career mode of ours. So those of you that stick with us now, you know, from the get-go, from episode 1 and stick with us for all the future episodes, you know, you're going to understand, you know, the timeline of things, you know, how people got their wins and whatnot, the stats of this alternate universe we're creating in this career mode of ours. And what a story this is. McLaren becoming the second best team in Formula 1. 3 wins in the season. Lando with 2. Ricciardo with 1. Crazy, sensational stuff then from them. But look at that now. AlphaTauri, 47 points. We're on 44. We are oh so close. We are one more good race away from maybe overtaking them and getting a crucial P6, which means more prize money and also just bragging rights and a step of, you know, intent of, you know, this is where we are and where we want to go from then on into Season 2. Our new on-track rival, in-game rival, I should say, is Esteban Ocon. We're beating him at the moment 5-4. But what a great race and what a way to bounce back from the misery that was the DNF at the Singapore Grand Prix. Guys, if you did enjoy that episode, be sure to smash that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you are new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.